Meron ako ditong 7 items na multiple choice reviewer on the step 1 of your accounting cycle, which is analyzing transactions. So, sagutan natin ito one by one and tignan natin kung naintindihan nga ba ninyo ang step 1 ng accounting cycle. Okay? O doon sa mga hindi familiar sa steps in accounting cycle, walang problema. Ang tinutukoy lamang nito is your transaction analysis or yung pag-analyze ng mga transactions before we record it in the journal. Okay, proceed tayo sa question number 1. The first step in the accounting cycle is to letter A, record transactions in the journal. Letter B, analyze transactions from source documents. Letter C, post journal entries to general ledger accounts. Or letter D, adjust the general ledger accounts. Dahil ang pinag-uusapan natin dito, transaction analysis, ang sagot dapat ninyo ay letter B. Pero kung sakali man na hindi given yung ating topic, dapat yan yung first step mo. We have to analyze transactions coming from the source documents. Yung record transactions in a journal, that will be your next step, followed by your posting journal entries to the general ledger accounts. And then by year end, we do adjusting entries to adjust the general ledger accounts when necessary. Okay, so question number 1, letter B. Proceed tayo sa question number 2. Which of the following would typically be considered a source document? Chart of accounts, general ledger, general journal, or invoice received from seller. Alin daw dito ang source document? Ano ba yung source document? Ito yung basis mo when you are recording a specific transaction na may financial implication. Ano ba ang sagot dito? Is it A, B, C, or D? Is it the chart of accounts? What is a chart of account? A chart of accounts is a listing of the accounts that are being used by the company. Assets, liabilities, equity, income, and expenses. That is your listing. Hindi po yan ang sagot. How about general ledger? Yung general ledger mo, dito nakalagay yung mga transactions pertaining to that specific account. Receivable ledger, cash ledger, inventory ledger, accounts payable ledger. Kung ano pa mang account na yan, that is your general ledger. General journal, dito natin pinapasok ang mga journal entries. Syempre, ang sagot natin dyan is letter D, invoice received from seller. Invoice, mapa-purchase invoice or sales invoice, depende sa point of view ni buyer or ni seller. Pero syempre, when there is an invoice, it represents that there was a transaction that happened between the buyer and the seller. So our answer for question number 2 is letter D. How about question number 3? Which of the following documents does not initiate an entry to be made in the accounts? Alin daw dito sa mga dokumento na ito ang hindi mo kinakailangang gumawa ng journal entry sa kanilang mga ledger accounts? Sales invoice, purchase invoice, purchase order, or credit memorandum? Ano ba dapat dito ang tamang sagot? Sales invoice and purchase invoice, depende naman ito sa perspective kung kaninong point of view. Pero pag meron kang sales invoice or purchase invoice, merong nangyaring transaction. So merong journal entry tayo na nilalagay dyan. On the part of the seller, kung sales invoice yan, that is the recognition of your sales and the collection of your, kung nakatanggap ng pera or kung utang muna. Purchase invoice, yan yung kabaliktaran. Yung purchase order, eto yung tamang sagot. Kasi pag sinasabing purchase order, merong naaprubahan for purchase of a specific item for the company. Pero ifo-forward pa lang ito doon sa supplier mo. So, that is the initiating request doon kay supplier para ayusin kung ano yung binibili ni customer. Kaya wala pa tayong journal entry dyan kasi wala pa naman tayong natatanggap na item. So, hold muna. Okay? Ang credit memorandum ang best way para isipin ninyo ito is your bank reconciliation. Di ba kapag may credit memo, ito ay isang book reconciling item at meron tayong adjusting entry. So ito ay hindi yung tamang sagot. For question number 3, the answer is letter C, purchase order. Proceed naman tayo sa question number 4. The debit and credit analysis of a transaction normally takes place before an entry is recorded in a journal, when the entry is posted to the ledger, when the trial balance is prepared, or at some other point in the accounting cycle. Yung debit and credit analysis ng isang transaction nangyayari kailan? Siyempre, ang sagot dyan, bago tayo magawa ng journal entry. Kaya it is letter A. Kasi yung letter B, when the entry is posted to the ledger, o dapat tama na ang analysis mo ng transaction. Kasi kung mali ka ng pagkakaintindi, o mali yung maipipick up ng ledger balance. Kasi remember, your ledger contains the details of your transactions, plus or minus, or debit or credit. O letter C, hindi siya tama when the trial balance is prepared. Nandoon ka na malapit sa preparation ng financial statement. Malayo na ito masyado. At some other point in the accounting cycle, meron lamang pong isang point which is the prior to the entry. Entry point, before the entry point. So the answer is letter A, before an entry is recorded in a journal. Proceed tayo sa question number 5. The hiring of an HR manager as a replacement officer shall be recognized in the books of the company as both an economic resource and a future obligation. Is not recognized as an accountable transaction in the accounting records of the company. Shall be assessed by the owner of the business if needs to be reported in the books of the company, or shall be recorded in the books as an expense and a liability based on the monthly salary stated in the contract. O kapag nag-hire ng isang HR manager as a replacement officer, replacement kapalit, maaring nag-resign or nagretiro na yung HR manager, kukuha ng kapalit. O pag may ganitong transaction, is this an accountable transaction or not? O wala itong financial implication? The answer is letter B. Wala tayong nire-record, wala tayong debit or credit, walang increase or decrease sa iyong asset, liabilities, equity, income, or expenses. So, pag binasa mo yung A, C, and D, mali po yan. Shall be recognized in the books? Hindi po. Yung letter D, shall be recorded in the books? Hindi rin po. Yung letter C, shall be assessed by the owner? Walang pakialam yung may-ari hindi kailangang i-assess yan kasi wala pa dapat i-record na transaction. So the answer is letter B. Now, proceed tayo sa question number 6. Analysis of a financial transaction is necessary, letter A, for proper recording in the general journal. Letter B, to avoid erroneous recording of transactions. Letter C, because not all company transactions may be recorded. Or letter D, all statements are correct. Pag binasa mo yan at inintindi mong maigi, lahat ng yan ay tama. Nag-a-analyze tayo ng transactions para ma-record natin ito ng tama. Maiwasan natin yung maling recording at dahil hindi lahat ng transactions ay nire-record. Kagaya nung naunang question, hiring ng HR manager. So the answer is all of these choices. Proceed tayo sa question number 7. What does transaction analysis mean in the accounting process? Letter A. Accountants determine the impact of the transactions on the financial position as represented by the basic equation asset equals liabilities plus equity. Letter B. Accountants journalize the transactions in the journal based on its effect on the accounting equation. Letter C. Accountants post transactions in the ledger while considering the rule of debit and credit. Or letter D. Accountants prepare financial statements for resources analysis and decision making. Transaction analysis. Yung analysis of your transaction, the answer of course is letter A. the accountants determine the impact of transactions as represented by your basic accounting equation. Yung letter B, that is journalizing. Letter C, that is posting to the ledger account. And letter D, that is already the preparation of your financial statements. So the answer is letter A. Okay? So these are the 7 questions para sa topic natin na analyzing transactions, step 1 of your accounting cycle. So, abangan ninyo ang aking step 2 ng ating accounting cycle. We will be having another set of questions para ma-assess natin yung inyong understanding ng topic. So until then, bye-bye!